Do you like it? I made it myself. So if you haven't already guessed from my last video I made where I talked about decks I'm excited for after Master Rule 5, fusion decks are my favorite kinds of strategies next to Xyz decks. The reason I like fusion decks is similar to the reason why people like ritual decks. You have big, strong monsters with powerful effects that are hard to summon, but establish themselves as huge threats to your opponent. Cards like Shaddolls, Winda, and Construct, Thunder Dragon Titan, and Invoked Makaba are very powerful fusion monsters that can turn the tide of a duel in an instant. So what if I told you there was a deck that managed to use all three of them? Introducing what I call Fusion Good Stuff. A deck that is exactly what the name implies. You're playing three different archetypes of what can be considered the most popular and strongest fusion monsters of recent times, baked inside of a 40 to 60 card deck. Now I was inspired by this by one of my friends or locals who played a deck similar to this build one night, and I gotta say, it's definitely a fun deck to pilot, even with its issues. With a good hand, you can end on a Titan and a Makaba with Titan pops in hand. You can go second, rip apart boards with Construct, and if you're forced to go first, Titan in either a Makaba or a Winda. Your monsters are flexible enough that you can switch between the ones you need in a matchup, and it's rare that you won't have an answer to your opponent's end board. Now with all of that said, this deck does have its problems. I've been working on my current build for about a week now, and the whole time I've been thinking about writing the script for this video, the deck has changed at least 4 different times. I'm confident in this deck's ability to play, but I feel like this deck hasn't been solved yet in terms of deck building. You can still build a board, but my deck list you're going to see should only be used as a baseline and can definitely be improved upon. So here's my current build of the deck. For the Thunder Dragons we have 3 Roar, 3 Hawk, 3 Original, 3 Dark, 3 Matrix, and 1 Duo. Now despite playing 3 of each of the important ones, there are times where you don't want to see them. You only ever really want to see them if you're either opening a Aloof Lupine, which is mandatory in the deck now to make Titan, or a Lure of Darkness if it's a Roar or Dark. Also, be prepared to use Hawk's Mulligan effect a lot in this deck. 3 Aloof Lupine because it's mandatory now, 3 Aleister for your Invoke plays, and on the rare occasions you open a Shaddolls or 3 Thunders in hand to hardcast Construct or Titan. For the Shaddolls we have 1 Beast, 2 Dragons, 1 Squamata, 2 Hedgehogs, and 2 Falcos. To round off our monsters we have 1 Legionnaire for our saucy board breaking plays. For spells we run 3 Allure of Darkness for its ability to draw and banish, 3 Desires for draw, 3 Instant Fusion to start your Titan plays, 3 Shaddolls Fusion, 2 Invocation, 3 Thunder Dragon Fusion, and 3 Meltdown. Meltdown is a great generic fusion support card because it protects all of your fusion spells from being negated. Now just to reiterate, this deck is not solved. I do believe this deck can be a threat in the future. Maybe not meta, but at least a threat. And even if it isn't good enough to be considered a threat, it's still a fun deck. There's a lot of cute interactions this deck can do, with Aleister boosting any fusion, the field spell protecting your fusions, or even invocating from hand and then banishing your Aleister with Dragon Duo to shuffle your invocation back. I'm definitely open to suggestions for this deck, so if you have any suggestions on how to make this deck better, I'd love to hear them. Keep in mind that with the replays, the main deck may be different than the example I showed earlier, but the gameplay and endboard should be the same. With that, here is Fusion Good Stuff.
Keep my life, I'll lose myself in you. I'm so addicted, it has to end. But why do I keep holding your hand? I am stuck and I'm hypnotized. Visions of you come and stay the entire night. My mind is blurry, rescue out of sight. Crazy me, what do I not see? That you are living poison in my veins. Put the needle in me so that I feel free. I let it loose, give you the key. Pray that you'll be dead to me. dead to me.
I get lost inside my thoughts, and when I start to think, oh, the Tahoe close, it starts to end up on the brink. I tried so hard, but all these scars, they cut so deep, I bleed. I fell so fast from heaven, it's like someone clipped my wings. Now I'm falling, and I can't see the ground. Can we stop this gravity? It keeps bringing me down. I can't breathe, and I don't wanna die. Can we stop this gravity? 'Cause I don't wanna say goodbye. I forgive the pain you gave to me so long ago. Sleepless nights I laid awake just begging to let go. I almost got to suicidal thoughts, but you stepped in. An angel sent from heaven showed me how to live again. Now I'm falling, and I can't see the ground. Can we stop this gravity? It keeps bringing me down. I can't breathe, and I don't wanna die. Can we stop this gravity? 'Cause I don't wanna say goodbye.
So how did our deck do? Let's try and go over what makes this deck good and what needs to be improved. The good. 1. The deck can perform several fusion summons in a turn with ease, and it's not uncommon to pop several cards of Titan. Getting out at least 2 of your fusions is a huge threat to your opponent. 2. Titan is still a good card even after the Colossus hit. Sure, the deck would be a lot better with Colossus, but the deck is functional without it. 3. Your deck almost always has an out to your opponent's monsters. There's almost never a situation where you don't have the tools in your deck to deal with a situation. And the bad. 1. The deck is very bricky. You're forced to run a lot of 3-ofs of cards that you usually don't want to see in your opening hand, which is why I've tinkered with the idea of 40 to 60 card versions of this deck. Sure, it'll make your plays less consistent, but in a way, it'll make it less of a brick, if that makes any sense. 2. The boards we can build with this deck are strong, but I fear they might not be strong enough. Dealing with one Macabre negate won't break most decks, and balancing a Titan or Winda isn't particularly hard in our current format. 3. We have a hard time playing through negation. I know that's kind of ironic considering this is a going second deck, but 2 negates will usually end our turn. I've said this earlier, and I'll say it again. This deck has yet to be solved. It can put out interesting boards, but I'm afraid it might not be good enough for our meta. On the bright side though, this deck seems to be safe from the ban list as it is. It doesn't do anything inherently broken or unfair, and maybe someday, if we get good support and the environment is right, this deck can compete. Anyway, this will wrap it up for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you'll be here for the next one.